Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to a new reaction. This is the Tragedy of Jevil, a Deltarune character interpretation, and this has been requested of me for a little while now. Their name is... Honestly, I can't read that. Is that Cyrillic? I can't tell. But they've been asking me to do reaction to the Tragedy of Jevil for a while now, so I thought since I have the time, I'd finally indulge them. And I mean, thinking about it, like, what is the Tragedy of Jevil potentially? I mean, could it be, you know, just the delusion that Jevil lives in, thinking that he's the only one that's free? Like, he knows that, you know, everything doesn't matter, so even though he's locked in a cage, he has no friends, no interactions with the outside world, like, at all, he's the only one that's free, and that's the only thing that matters. Yeah, I could see that as being really sad. I mean, from everything we've seen, Jevil used to be rather popular, and now he's just all alone, crazy. Yeah, I could see that being rather tragic. But yeah, like, other than that, I really don't have anything else to say on this video, so, you know, let's actually get this thing started. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video link to my Let's Play of the day. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because almost 3/4 of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my next big goal is hopefully hit 6,000 subscribers before the end of the year. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Hey, my name is Sharkallmessedup, or just Samu for short, and this is Jevil. This unassuming little cutie is a character from the video game / transmedial workout / actual fever dream called Deltarune.
Oh yeah.
In the following, I want to present to you my personal character interpretation of Jevil, meaning I want to outline to you what I believe to be the message behind the character of Jevil, or in other terms, what I believe Jevil himself wants to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, like, Jevil really has been left by the wayside. Because, like, I mean, granted, you can actually say that a lot about, like, a lot of the things from Chapter 1 in the Dark World. Because, like, unlike in other chapters where, you know, you had Spamton literally make a cameo if you had his item equipped in Chapter 3. Or, you know, Chapter 4, secret boss fight being Gerson, which everybody was so excited for. Like, nothing really has been said of Jevil, like, at all. Like, the only exception, like, or the closest thing to anything connected to Jevil would really be just Sham, and that's just, you know, collecting the shards.
Said interpretation will be divided into 4 distinct yet fluently connected parts, with every aspect of the earlier parts being spun further and built upon with every subsequent one, forming what will eventually become the full image of what I believe Jevil is. Now, let me preface this by admitting that as the video goes on and we dive deeper into the concept that I have crafted, my thoughts can get really out there. Not much of what I say in the later parts is supported by actual in-game evidence really well, but it's not entirely fabricated either, and that's not what I actually care about anyway. I want to present something new about this game I really love. Something you haven't yet heard before, even if you have consumed all other content you came across in the fandom of this silly video game. And if that is what you're here for, then, if nothing else, I can surely deliver exactly that.
Yeah, fire away!
I really just want to tell you a story. The story of Jevil. Every good interpretation must always first contain a description of whatever you want to interpret. So, who or what is Jevil? Well, the fact that you clicked on this video most likely means that you are part of the brain-rotten collective mess that are Deltarune loreheads, myself most certainly included. Therefore, I should probably keep the basics short. However, for the sake of completeness and because my mom is watching, hey mom, I will still lay the groundwork out properly. Jevil is a character in this video game called Deltarune. More accurately, he is the secret boss of Deltarune's first chapter of likely 7 total. The secret and secret boss mean that you have to go out of your way to encounter him, and that he is optional to the chapter's main plot and progression. You can
and also not really that important to the story overall, at least so we think so far.
first talk to Jevil locked away underneath Card Castle. He explains that he feels quite lonely, however, he himself doesn't actually believe to be locked away. Rather ironically to the circumstances presented to the player, as Ralsei stated, he says that he is the only free person, whereas everyone else is seemingly locked away. More on that later. He goes on to wish for someone else to be free with him, and for that we would need the key to open his door with, giving us the hint that the old shopkeeper knows something about it. Said shopkeeper is, of course, Sham. More on him later too. He gives us one of 3 items called the broken keys. The other 2 broken keys being located 1 at the end of an invisible pathway and 2 behind a puzzle in an earlier area being solvable only by backtracking. Giving all 3 broken keys to this enthusiastic contract worker results in being able to encounter Jevil, the hardest boss fight in Chapter 1 of Deltarune. Okay, I know that you all know this and have probably done exactly that successfully 6 years ago. You probably also know that Jevil once was the court jester right besides that old magician turned shopkeeper Sham. And
actually, you know, thinking about it, like, I beat Jevil, like, years ago, like, after I completed Chapter 2, because I went back and kind of redid my save then, but I haven't actually fought him since. I don't know if I'd be able to beat him now. I mean, I've beaten other bosses since then, so maybe I'd be able to beat him now. Maybe, who knows? That might have to be something I do.
Entertaining the Spade King. That he then got locked away by the 2 because he seemingly went insane after meeting a strange someone.
Oh! Yo! I got double door, wait a second!
Double door, god, yeah, I love that.
And you also know that Jevil is representative of the Joker in a deck of playing cards. I mean, his battle theme is literally called Joker.ogg in the files. The Joker is a concept in countless card games throughout the world and history. The Joker acts as a wild card and a rule breaker, a legitimized way of cheating, so to speak, as well as a constant threat to otherwise straightforward logic and strategy. This, of course, is very reminiscent of the importance of Jevil's dialogue to the overarching meta-narrative of Deltarune.
You know, I wonder, is this video at all going to reference the fact that a lot of Jevil is actually referenced to those weird, like, stickers, like those weird clown stickers? Because, again, I only recently, well, relatively recently, like, discovered that those were a thing, and I'm still, like, shocked at just the sources Toby Fox is pulling from for these things.
An otherwise very basic and simple plotline on the surface that just shatters into pieces by nearly everything that my boy here drops during his screen time. And with that, we have now reached the point of this video where I derail the so far seemingly predictable direction that this character analysis was heading towards. Because I pull my Joker by telling you that this is not a video about Jevil's importance to the Gaster storyline or how he foreshadows the meta-narrative of Deltarune. Remember when I called this a character interpretation? I used that term very intentionally. I want to look at Jevil like a piece of art, like a painting in the gallery or a sculpture in a museum, on my own and without any tour guide. Art and its interpretations are in the eye of the beholder. These interpretations can be valid, even if they are unsupported by or even outright contrary to statements by the artist or the surrounding context of the artwork and its creational process. What I am about to explain to you is my personal interpretation of Jevil, which is not a piece that is meant to fit within the Gaster puzzle. So don't worry, I don't want to take your beloved Mystery Man storyline away from you. You can keep the eggs in the fridge, I don't mind.
Of course.
No, instead what I want to outline with this video is the general idea that I do firmly believe Mr. Toby had in mind when creating Jevil. However, I would still hold on to this interpretation even if he would comment on this here video stating that my ramblings sound like utter garbage noise to him. What I mean to tell you is that my analysis here is not compatible with Jevil's role in this video or this Reddit post. These views on Jevil can easily coexist with my interpretation without contradicting each other, as they fill very different narrative niches that merely converge in a few standalone instances. My interpretation of Jevil is one detached from Deltarune's overarching plot, whereas these interpretations only make sense when placing Jevil within the tangled web of awake allusions to this hidden narrative. It is exactly this web that I want to take Jevil out of for a moment and look at what other message he wants to spread. What story Jevil has to tell all on his own. And for this story it is essential to recognize Jevil as a metaphorical stand-in for the Joker playing card. Okay then, let us talk about card games for a moment.
Card games on motorcycles? No. So, the Joker, I mean, granted, I'm not that... Well, I've never really been that much into card games, honestly. The most I've played has been, like, 21, Go Fish, stuff like that. I've tried playing a little, like, Texas Hold'em before, but I can never remember the card combinations for it. But the fact that the Joker is supposed to be, like, a rule breaker. And Jevil was... What is that supposed to mean? In the context of Deltarune? Because, like, so far, again, like, we don't actually have that much to go off on Jevil at this point again. He appeared in Chapter 1. He gave us the item when you beat him. And that was it. There's nothing more. And, he went, besides him going nuts after supposedly meeting, Gaster, or somebody, like, related to him, what does that have to mean?
Moment. The Joker is an extremely interesting addition to the standard deck of otherwise 52 cards. It emerged from the highest trump card in a game called
Euchre.
And spread
really?
very naturally and gradually from there into Canasta, Rummy, and nearly every now available for purchase standard deck of playing cards over the last century. What exactly the Joker card does in each game varies drastically, but in pretty much every single instance, the Joker is a form of wild card. It is the original wild card. The Joker is incorporated into a game to intentionally provide a way of turning the tides, subverting expectations and changing the pace. The Joker brings unpredictability. This is its one and only purpose. The Joker, if you want, is chaos. Chaos! It is
How
the
fitting.
literal representation of entropy confined within a playing card. Jevil is the Joker. Not only metaphorically actually, but probably quite literally too. If what we get to know as the character Lancer in the Dark World is a mere Jack of Spades in the Light World, then we can infer without a doubt that the character named Jevil in the Dark World is likewise just a regular old Joker card.
Okay, so actually, I've never played Euchre before. What does the Joker do in Euchre? Yeah, okay, never mind. I should probably look at this later, not during the reaction.
To all the Lightners. While hardly a groundbreaking revelation, this fact still tells us that Jevil is not just chaotic because he got insane after certain events in the plot. Moreover, is it an intrinsic and even elemental part of his personality that is dependently intertwined with him as a person and probably always was. Jevil always was chaotic, energetic, unpredictable, uncontrollable, wild and free. As the Joker, he can literally do anything.
I can do anything!
Okay, so kind of continuing off from that, that might explain why he went nuts after being supposedly told, the nature of the universe, that, the prophecy was going to happen, that all things are foretold. If he himself was already chaotic and, the freest one, maybe that, that information broke his mind in the way that, oh, I am the only free one because I'm the only one that knows this. Therefore, I'm the only one that's truly free, or something like that. Which, I mean, granted, think about that. That pretty much just sounds exactly like what the standard interpretation of Jevil is right now. So,
He doesn't just believe that because he has gone completely mental at this point. Remember, he is a Joker playing card. Within any context that he belongs in, he can truly do anything. It is that exact nature of the Joker card that makes it noticeably absent from, ironically, the institutions where by far the most card games are played around the globe at any time. Casinos. Blackjack, Texas Hold'em, Baccarat, Casino War, Caribbean Stud. None of them used jokers. Well, why? Maybe because jokers would be too unpredictable for the house. Maybe it would give the player too much control, too much agency. Agency that is simply not taken kindly in the cold, calculable words of the adults. Jokers just don't belong in casinos. Well, what else doesn't belong in casinos?
Chaos.
Or rather, who else? Who loves card games filled with wackiness and creativity?
Children.
Who would hate restricting rules when playing any game of any sort? Who are the real-life ambassadors of chaos? Well, kids, of course.
Oh my god. When rules popped up there, I only just... Okay. So, the opposite of Jevil would be rules, because rules is the literal rules card of the deck. How did I never notice that before?
Kids love breaking rules. Creating chaos is their delight and joy. And I tell you one more thing that brings many kids delight and joy. Something that lets their big round eyes sparkle with amazement. Something that is often at the same time the bane of parents and annoying to anyone that is not still a child, at least at heart. A carousel.
A world revolving,
Let me tell you a small and recent anecdote to start this segment off. So, my mom has always been a wonderful guide to me when it came to confidence and identity. She has never dared to question my sisters or my hobbies, pastimes and interests as long as we have fun. My mom celebrates our curiosity and fantasy even as we grow and age into adulthood. In our household, being childish is not and has never been seen as something negative. So, consider our amazement when the three of us were strolling around on the Christmas market in my hometown in early December and we come across a cute little merry-go-round with all sorts of wacky creatures to sit down upon. My sister and I were thrilled to just forget all the boring adult stuff for 3 minutes and just embrace the quirkiness of riding a neon pink alligator bopping up and down and spinning in a circle. And then consider our sheer disappointment when the lady behind the counter told the two of us that this ride was not allowed for anyone over the age of 10. Wow. We stood there in silence for a few seconds, pondering our shattered hopes of escaping the burdens of growing up. Instead of laughter and pink alligators, our minds were immediately filled again with looming deadlines, upcoming appointments, and lingering duties. We try to rebel against growing up, but society dictates that with any certain age come specific normalized behaviors. Trying to break out from that makes you a weirdo, an outcast, and in the eyes of many, a fool. A joke perhaps, and if you lose composure in that protest, you may be even seen as insane. Jevil is insane, but what made him this way? In the grander picture of Deltarune,
God, isn't that true? I mean, and it's not only just age, like, it's also just, you know, the physical changes that come with age. Like, I can tell you, there are a lot of things I wish I could still do, but it's just the simple fact that I'm so big that kind of gets in the way of that. Like, even when I was young enough, like, you know, given the time of year to go trick-or-treating, like, I was getting dirty looks while I was still in elementary school from some parents when I went to door just because I was so tall. And, like, granted, I mean, me going in this neighborhood, me and my brother still went trick-or-treating in high school. I mean, the neighborhood we live in now, like, there's not a lot of trick-or-treaters, so, you know, every house you went to, they'd give you a lot of candy per house. But even eventually, that had to end as well. Yeah, and you know, it's always been, and I've heard it said before that, you know, like, childhood, like, people long for childhood because, you know, like, it was simpler and stuff like that. And, well, on the one hand, you have people that say, like, oh, it wasn't simpler, you just didn't know as much. And, well, yeah, they're completely right. You didn't know as much, and I don't want to know as much anymore. Sometimes. When your biggest I long for the days when the biggest things I had to worry about was, studying for tests and getting good grades. And I think a lot of people can say the same.
Deltarune, the answer to that question is of course meeting Gaster and becoming aware that he is a mere compilement of pixels and pre-programmed dialogue in a video game played by an entity with what he can only describe as godlike abilities and powers. But besides that, besides this hidden him, the man behind the shadows that we have yet to so far actually see in this game that we are talking about, if we only look at Jevil himself and his surrounding elements, as I stated as my intention in part 1, what then may have caused Jevil to lose his sanity? What is he struggling with personally? I believe I can tell you the answer to that question. In fact, I believe that Jevil quite obviously is telling us exactly that every time we play with him this simple numbers game. When we finally engage in battle with Jevil, when we finally can offer him someone to be free alongside with, we listen to this song, Joker.ogg. This masterfully crafted composition that stands alongside many and yet, apologies for the massive gushing, personally to me is the greatest piece of music that Toby Fox has ever written. What is Jevil struggling with? It's the world revolving. Like a carousel, the world spins and never stops, never even slows down to take a breath. No, we all age. Constantly time passes. Bonds form but always one day break. People born will someday always die, and every child must one day grow into an adult. Jevil doesn't want to grow up. He wants to keep riding that carousel well beyond the age of 10. Imagine, for a second, you see a 46-year-old, broad-shouldered and customized, grayish-bearded man riding a children's carousel. You may very well be weirded out by that sight. You may laugh wholeheartedly. You may shake your head in cringe. Even if you don't, someone surely would, and the fact remains, these people see this man as somewhat of a fool. Jevil is that fool. Where Sham embraces his old age and life experience as part of his identity as the friendly stuffed animal grandpa behind the counter of the neighborhood armory, Jevil refuses to set himself to rest, still jumping and bumbling around, refusing to admit any passing of his prime. A peculiar distinction between the two, don't you think?
Which, given that a major part of his boss fight is literally, like if you go the pacifist route, is literally just tiring him out and having him go to sleep. Like somebody who's older. Okay.
Considering they seemingly have such a long shared past together, I think it would be only logical in terms of age distribution among Darkness that Jevil may be viewed just as much as a crumbling old senior as Sham describes himself to be. The difference being that Jevil, of course, is not willing to act according to his age. The world is revolving. The carousel is spinning. Huh. I wonder what that carousel sounds like. Shall we take a listen?
I know.
A pan flute. A beautiful instrument. Mostly made of bamboo, the distinct sound of these pipes evoke a feeling of elatedness and fantasy. They were named after the Greek god of shepherds, Pan, just like the protagonist of James Matthew Barrie's stage play, Peter Pan, the boy who wouldn't grow up. The leader of the Lost Boys on Neverland
has become a cultural icon symbolizing youthful innocence and escapism.
Mm-hmm,
Peter Pan is an exaggerated stereotype of a boastful and careless boy. He claims greatness even when such claims are questionable.
Damn. One might...
Okay, obvious connections between Jevil and Peter Pan aside. Okay.
Very easily imagine Peter Pan exclaiming something along the lines of, I don't know, I can do anything perhaps? He might say that when facing a dangerous wild animal all on his own, or perhaps just moments from drowning in the vast open sea when a slowly rising tide consumes the ground beneath his feet. Barrie, however, chose a different expression for his character in this exact situation. Faced with the unrelenting hopelessness radiated by an endless ocean ready to bring upon his end, this boy simply exclaimed, "To die will be an awfully big adventure." This in turn feels so much like something Jevil would laughingly shout at you with less than 10% of his HP remaining, doesn't it? I have another Peter Pan quote for you, my favorite one actually. "Little boys should never be sent to bed. They always wake up a day older." Does that remind you of someone? Actually, I'm not talking about Jevil, even though he for sure has the energy of a hyperactive 4-year-old on New Year's Eve at 2 AM that refuses to even blink in order to prove a point to his mom of not being tired at all.
Lancer?
No, I'm talking about Jevil's opponent.
Oh.
The one who unlocked the Crazy Justice cage.
Never mind,
Think
okay.
about it. Little boys should never be sent to bed. They always wake up a day older. It's Chris. So remember how Spamton and Chris have this weird bond formed by the shared suffering of being controlled by someone else. The story of Spamton shakes Chris up immensely because they resonate so much with the pain that Spamton describes and the desire to be free by all costs. Chris connects to the Chapter 2 secret boss like no other character. Well, what if he has a similar connection to the secret boss of Chapter 1 as well?
I mean, I think I've seen another video talking about something similar. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. But the idea of Chris, being afraid of things changing. I mean, depending on how old they are is still a little up in the air. But they're in high school. But Chris is a teen in high school, or at least in the high school equivalent class or something. The school in hometown is weird. And eventually, Chris might have to go off to college or university themselves. And, knowing that seemingly a lot of, the bad stuff happening in Chris' life may have started, when Azrael moved or left for college himself, is potentially Toriel and Asgore's divorce, given that, the way Asgore has talked about it, alright, given that the way it's been talked about, it doesn't seem like Azrael might know about the divorce at all? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I could definitely see that.
Instead of the desire to be free at all costs, Chris relates to Jevil personally via the desire to not grow up at all costs. They cherish the memories of their childhood with Azrael and Noelle like treasure. They seemingly think that the joys contained within these memories are valuable beyond anything else, and that changing in any form from the child that experienced these moments would mean abandoning these joys from life. Chris is constantly either in complete denial of the passage of time or in fierce opposition to it. But more on that in just a bit. All I want to speculate right now is the possibility that the Peter Pan attitude that surrounds Jevil is as important of a characteristic of him as the rebellion against being a puppet is for Spamton. Much more hidden in the subtext and context clues in Jevil's case than on the nose with Spamton, but I guess that reflects the way these two tick intrinsically quite well. Jevil is secretive and scheming, where Spamton is flamboyant and self-centered. Jevil doesn't directly talk about the connection he feels to Chris, but he still is obsessed with this Lightner, just as maniacally as the crazy salesman hiding in the cyber dumpsters. Okay, I know what you might be thinking now. Samu, what the frisk are you on about? What kind of deranged headcanon am I listening to right now? And yes, pretty much my entire argument for Jevil being a metaphor for not growing up hinges on the usage of a pan flute as one among many other instruments in his 2 in-game music tracks, and just assuming this is...
Yeah, I mean, actually, when you say it out loud like that, realizing that, while the arguments in this do sound like really convincing, the fact that most of them are actually only connected to a single instrument in one of Jevil's, music themes, it's a bit tenuous.
Actually a reference to Peter Pan. Yes, objectively, that is all I have. But that's not to say that it's the only thing instinctively connecting Jevil to the theme of childhood. There is his obsession with games, his energetic behavior, this sprite where he sticks out his tongue, and of course that carousel that's always spinning in the background. Even this Gyges-esque mess back there is actually a spread out picture of a real carousel located at a traveling fair from Newcastle upon Tyne.
Okay, I didn't know
Don't even
that.
have anything to do with jesters or jokers. And that pan flute is deliberately playing rising and falling arpeggios to mimic the music that typically plays on the carousel. I know it's not much, and frankly I do not even claim that Toby intended the allusions and similarities to Peter Pan. I do not claim he wanted to imply the not growing up connection between Jevil and Chris, or the acted age discrepancies with Sean. However, we are talking about Toby Fox of all people. And so I personally choose to think he did, and following that path to the end is a rewarding journey that beautifully recontextualizes one of the most... Hold on a second. Read that Wikipedia quote again.
What?
Has become a cultural icon symbolizing youthful innocence and escapism.
Oh no. It's that word again.
Escapism.
The forbidden E-word. The nebulous term that has infiltrated every last corner of the Deltarune theory landscape.
Yeah, dark worlds and their symbolism for escapism.
From...
What we're looking for here isn't just freedom. This freedom manifests in all roots as escapism.
To...
It is this struggle of getting stuck within the grasp of escapism and being unable to reconnect with reality.
And even...
What motivation do all of these knights have in common? The simple answer is escapism.
Escapism. Ironically, it seems like there truly is no escape from this word when it comes to talking about Deltarune.
No,
Well,
no, there
if
isn't.
that's the case, then let's go all in.
The plaything.
So, escapism, huh? Where do we start? Let us ask for help and call upon the almighty Ox. For
Oxford Dictionary, okay.
It states that escapism describes...
Escapism is the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy.
Okay, holy shit. That's a lot to unpack. Well,
And I mean, given that, you know, the added layer, you know, related to Deltarune, is that Darkeners are created, their whole, you know, thing of existence is specifically to, you know, entertain and interact with Lighteners.
But first let me start with the stuff that has already been pointed out by many of my fellow Deltarune loreheads. Seeking distraction and relief from the real world is exactly what Chris and Susie are doing when entering the Dark World. Especially in Chapter 2, after already knowing what a fountain looks like, they willingly dive headfirst into this fantastic realm far removed from their problems in the Light World. Or at least, that is what it feels like to them. The Dark Worlds are what the Ox describes as entertainment/fantasy. It fits both terms quite well and therefore provides the best comfort for two reckless teens shaken up and overwhelmed by their life circumstances in the real world. In the Dark World, they can shape their persona much more easily to reflect who they want to be rather than who they actually currently are. It sort of cuts out the slow and hard process of incrementally changing oneself in situation after situation by simply creating a new and improved self from scratch. An avatar. Their avatars being a reflection of their desires for their own identities, and to finally steer this back to some original thoughts and the topic of Jevil, one core element of these identities is not being afraid to be openly childish, allowing themselves to have fun, to goof around and not attend to any unwanted responsibilities and expectations.
I mean, that is kind of hamstrung by the fact that they're, you know, the heroes of prophecy destined to, you know, having to close these dark worlds for, you know, the sake of all the world. I mean, there's a level of, you know, responsibility there that kind of counteracts the whole, oh, hey, it's the dark world is so much fun and carefree, woo!
Jevil has that same desire. The desire to simply play games and have fun without any asterisks. There's a saying that goes, a child's imagination opens doors to new worlds. How very fitting and deliberately vague. What new worlds, you may ask? Well, all of them. What do they look like? You decide.
The dark
That is how
worlds.
boundaryless a child's imagination is. Quite bluntly, when playing games, a child can do anything.
Do anything, yeah.
Jevil is the one Darkner that takes this sentiment to the extreme. He believes that fantasy is unbound, whereas reality is caged. He is genuinely convinced that he is the only free one among all the Darkners. And Chris may believe that all Darkners are much more free than any Lightner. A belief only strengthened by Jevil's implications of the light world being just as fabricated of a reality as the dark world is anyway.
I mean, given that we don't exactly know what Gaster told Jevil, and that is actually true, at least in this sense.
Therefore, the only way forward is to indulge oneself fully in said fabrication, which Jevil seems to have achieved, yet in that process sacrificed the respect and connection to his fellow Darkners, and even most trusted friend, driving him into solitude and therefore fueling his detachment from reality even more. He explored just how powerful imagination can be and has yet to find any boundaries at all, leaving him to believe he can do anything. Being the Joker, he does not only use just one kind of card suit based magic in battle.
No,
Jevil
he uses all
of them. He can probably just will anything into existence as long as it is within the confines of the reality he is occupying, which he even seems to be consciously aware of. In that sense, Jevil even transcends his implied in-game light world equivalent of just one Joker playing card.
I mean, do Jokers even have a suit? Because, like, I've always assumed the Jokers were just the Joker. They're suitless. So by that logic, they can be any suit. So if you're, as long as it's part of a deck, you can pull from any suit possible.
Instead, he can be read as a stand-in for any children's toy you can think of. Especially those toys that are being played with by very young kids, toddlers and kindergartners. The age where cars not only drive but sometimes also fly across the room. When prehistoric dinosaurs battle futuristic robots and the Ken doll happily gets Barbie's dresses put on. The time before societal and logical rules are internally acknowledged when playing. The time when a mother watching over their little angel just blissfully smiles in joy of witnessing such pure innocence that no adult could ever even dream to radiate. That's the time when a toy can be anything and do anything. There's no need for a dragon plushie at that age to play the villain in a knight's adventure. The teddy bear can be the dragon. Teddy can fly and spit fire and roar. Teddy could also be the knight, and fight with bravery, speak eloquently to its peers, and save the world with their impeccable taekwondo skills. Teddy can be the barber or the customer, can be the grandma or the little brother. Teddy could host the tea party or be the guest. Teddy can do anything, and Jevil is that Teddy. Most people, however, tend to play less and less with their teddy bear as they age. From being the only thing that can ease their fear of monsters under the bed at night, the teddy becomes a decorative element of the bed, then the desk, then the shelf, and finally, inevitably being either buried in a garbage sack or rotting away in a dust-collecting card box.
You know, it's like, it kind of reminds me of my little brother. When we got him, like, his first toy was, was quite literally a teddy bear, Mashka, Lithuanian for just bear. And that was his, like, for years, that was his go-to to go to bed with. Like, I don't know if he still uses it now. It's like, it's somewhere in his room. But, for years it was joked about, like, my mom would have to, like, repair him because he had been so well loved. And, like, to the point where, like, his nose, like, the actual, like, button or, like, fabric sewn thing at the tip of his nose had been worn completely off, so he had no nose. His fur was, like, almost paper thin down to the fabric. Like, you looked at that toy, and you knew it had been loved to within an inch of its life. I never really had anything like that. Like, I've been told by my parents I used to have a stuffed giraffe. but I have no idea what happened to that one. And everybody has something like that. Yeah, we honestly need more of them. We really do.
In the least lit corner of the attic, newer toys and more mature pastimes have taken Teddy's place, and so they slowly get forgotten.
The cast off.
Before we finally put everything we have explored.
I mean, isn't that literally just the inciting incident of chapter 1? I mean, why did King take over the card kingdom and all the games and stuff like that, and like eggs and like capture and trap the other kings and stuff like that? Because he was angry at the Lightners for being abandoned. The entire classroom had been abandoned for years because who we assume Gerson had died, and they had never gotten another teacher to fill his position or take his class. And so, I mean, I could very much see it just, it's on top of everything, that being just another thing that helped break Jevil that much easier.
In the last 3 parts of this character interpretation together into one coherent image, I want to share another anecdote with you. I want to introduce you to Lars. This is Lars, everyone. Lars is a polar bear. A really cute polar bear, if I dare to say so, which may be in part due to him being a plushie. Lars is also quite old, actually. He has roamed this earth for over 2 decades now. You know, that last bit about the omnipotent teddy bear, well, that wasn't entirely fabricated. Not at all, in fact. It really was the story of Lars. Lars was my companion before I played guitar or had a job. Before I wrote niche video essays, and before I went to school even. Before I played any video game, or before I could even read, write, count, walk or talk. At that time, Lars was truly an invaluable part of my life. The more of these skills I acquired, however, the more his prominence in my life decreased steadily. Along with my mom's face, Lars was once one of the only things that I needed to be happy. But over time, Lars eventually wasn't even needed at all to be happy anymore. When I first moved out from my parents, I at least had a little cubicle in an IKEA Kallax designated for Lars and some of his fellow senior old fluffs in my living room. But ever since I last moved, he has been living in a dark cardboard box, without light, without purpose and without hope. Anthropomorphism, the great Ox told me, is the attribution of human characteristics or behavior to a god, animal, or object. This is one of my brain's favorite activities. You see, me and my family, we suffer from something I would like to coin anthropomorphic empathy. We just cannot help but imagine what any given object or even intangible force of nature may feel like at any given moment.
Oh god, I mean, yeah, I can very much relate to that. I mean, I don't know how many times I've apologized to I've apologized to some machine or something for slamming a door too hard, or I've cursed like my bed or the door frame for stubbing my toe, or looking outside when it's like really stormy and just saying it's like, man, it's really angry out there or something like that. And it's the whole thing where like I know it, like even now, like my old computer here, like I've said it before, I found the receipt for it while cleaning not too long ago, and I originally bought this computer back in 2016. And since then I have, had some upgrades, but part of the RAM, the motherboard, one of the hard drives, at this point, it's slowly becoming the ship of Theseus, but there's still a lot of that old computer here. And every day that it turns on and I'm still able to record and edit, I thank it for its many years of service. And I wish at some point that I'd be successful, or I'd have the money to honestly either get one of those upgrade packages where it's a new CPU and a fresh motherboard, and it comes in with RAM, or just a brand new computer at all. Because at this point, this machine, this beautiful black box, this beautiful angular black box, does not owe me a penny for the years of joys and entertainment it has given me. And anytime I have to move it, I am so careful. I lift it carefully. I buckle it in. If I have to put it in the car, I buckle it in. This almost decade-old computing machine is one of my most prized objects. And until the day it finally goes, I will protect it with my life.
And to then empathize with this inanimate assortment of atoms in a deep and vulnerable way. My favorite example for this involves my cutlery drawer and the spoons in it. I use a lot of spoons. I crave yogurt and tea with honey and a bowl of cereal after waking up on a day off. And I clearly have preferences when it comes to the spoons in my drawer, as I'm sure most people at least subconsciously do. It may sound only logical and reasonable to use my favorite spoons whenever they are available, and to use my least favorite spoons only when the other ones are dirty. Especially that one impractically shaped, rough and ugly colored spoon at the bottom of the drawer. That one spoon that's so undesirable to me that I would sometimes rather use a fork. However, my brain is a little goofball and suffers greatly from feeling too much, and so I end up using that shitty spoon more often than I need to. Because I feel pity for it. That little outsider probably did not choose to be shaped that way, and really tries their best to do a good job. That spoon probably has a heart much kinder than these mundane normal spoons, always hanging out in groups of 5 with no ambition in their lives whatsoever. No, that awful spoon has dreams, and I believe it is so much more thankful to carry my cereal towards my lips than any of the other spoons would be. And so I end up eating with that little steel-made regret, rather than a spoon I would otherwise prefer to eat with if I would not be the chosen one to fucking hear their tormented screams when throwing them away. I think many of you watching actually understand my little quirk very well, because, well, you like Deltarune. At least to us, the feelings of these objects matter. And I'm of the firmest belief that Toby Fox's spoons are also talking, or barking, to him every time he opens the powerful portal into some fantastical realm of unspoken wonders that his cutlery drawer probably is. I also believe that Toby once had a plushie just like Lars, and that many years later, whether he intended to or not, he told the story of it through Jevil. Or more accurately perhaps, he captured the emotions that he feels when reminiscing over that long-lost fluffiness within every moment that Jevil is on screen. The one feeling that hurts Lars and other plushies like him the most is probably the feeling of slowly being forgotten, of not even being a fond memory anymore. Their only relevance lying in the past, therefore disconnecting from that past either by unintentionally forgetting or by deliberately moving on from it, takes away their last remaining meaning in this world. His status as a memory worth cherishing is everything that Lars has left, and so being forgotten is his biggest fear. Not only is Jevil also chronically stuck in the past, as I explored in part 2, he may also experience that same fear of being forgotten. And we find the biggest clue for that within the music once again. You are probably aware that Spamton's battle theme is like a mashup of at least 5 different motifs and leitmotifs at once.
Yeah.
Well, that is just very clever composing by Toby for this character that wants so many things, compares himself to so many people, and copies and adapts so many different conflicting personalities that he ends up not having any clear identity at all. Toby is really good at this storytelling through music thing, and we come back to Spamton in just a bit, after we have first taken care of the more blatant hint that Toby has given us through musical storytelling. Do you know what leitmotif appears in the world revolving that actually doesn't occur in Big Shot? It makes up the basis of the entire last third of the track, and it's called Don't Forget.
Right, the credits music. You know, honestly, I'm going to say this. I'd actually forgotten that was one of the motifs that's in Jevil's music. I mean, really, the only thing, I mean, like, everybody talks about, like, oh, Jevil's is, like, the first one to have the freedom motif. But no, like, yeah, there are other things in Jevil's music. I'd honestly kind of forgotten that. Yeah. I'm with you in the
The
dark.
name of the theme carries the argument basically on its own. If we then just look at the lyrics of Don't Forget, the actual song in the OST that plays at the end of chapter 1, it gets even clearer that Jevil is basically begging either Chris or the player through his battle track to not forget him. He offers us to take him with us through the rest of the adventure in the form of an item, just for us to hopefully not forget. Now, as a little addendum, if you choose to believe that this motif is actually called the friendship motif, and that therefore my argument hinges, let me rephrase it just a little and say that merely the
Friendship
connection
motif?
to Don't Forget the song through the friendship motif implies that Toby may want to hint at Jevil's fear of being forgotten, his escape into fantasy and his desire for companionship. The argument doesn't rely on the name of the motif, but rather the lyrics in the literal end credits song of the chapter 1, which is obviously musically connected to Jevil's battle theme. That theme is so obviously important because it is the only other recurring musical idea in the track besides the Freedom/Superboss theme that connects him and Spamton to Gaster, as the great Andrew Cunningham so efficiently proved in this masterpiece of a video.
Yeah.
Actually, let me use a small quote from Andrew there to expand on my previous argument.
Which, if you didn't know, I have also done a reaction to that, and granted it was a while ago. So, link to that in the corner if I, remember to. If I forget to put the link there, make sure to comment about it so, to remind me.
When talking about the world revolving, Andrew notes that this song holds on to the freedom theme much longer than Big Shot does, playing around with it more extensively with a more and more escalating violence and letting it carry the melody right until the Don't Forget based conclusion. This sounds very emblematic of Spamton and Jevil themselves. Spamton moves on from the motif rather fast, just like he moved on from his past, much too quickly and radically, without pondering for a moment how he came to where he is and who he used to be. He sets his sights towards the next best opportunity to gain any ounce of power, fame or wealth. Jevil is the exact opposite. Just like he holds on much longer to that motific melody, he also desperately holds on to his past identity. He violently clings to what has made him who he is and fights for the subjective feeling of not succumbing to the passing of time. By the way, I want to shortly point out a small distinction between the backstories we get to hear from Jevil and Spamton respectively. In Spamton's case, we get to hear his humble beginnings before he rose to power and eventual insanity. In Jevil's case, we only know his downfall from a position of great power. We never hear how he rose into the high rank of court jester that he used to occupy. To us, it feels like Jevil has always inhabited a commanding and important place within his dark world, which has only recently been stripped away from him.
Which, I guess would make a lot of sense if he's based off of the Joker card. The Joker card has that position since it was manufactured, and given that we assume that, the spare classroom has been abandoned for a while, I'd assume that deck of cards that Jevil's from is pretty old.
It's like Jevil was always there and already at his peak when time began. A sentiment that must be similar to what a little child feels when holding their beloved teddy bear that they received at birth. It was always there, but it will one day lose that warm embrace to occupy. I think it is no coincidence that Jevil is the secret boss of chapter 1 of all chapters. This is Toby's cruel way of exploring his tragedy. He wants to see how many players will forget Jevil throughout the whole adventure. He wants to see how many of us will keep their Jevil's knife and Jevil's tail with us until the end. Every secret boss from here on out will provide us with better equipment, more exciting lore dumps, and much more interesting and complex backstories. Don't believe me? Well, it's already happening. We got the Spamton sweepstakes. This entire great event surrounding the secret boss of chapter 2, bringing us super fans all sorts of lore-related wonders to ponder. Where was that in 2019? Where was my Jevil Jamboree? Where was my weird route doing chapter 1 with Jevil giving us that commemorative bracelet to...
Jevil Jamboree. God, oh man, if Toby needs to do another special event like that, just for charity's sake, and call it Jevil Jamboree, that is such a wasted opportunity if he doesn't.
Complete our horrific but exciting new path through the game. Can you see it? Can you see the oldest plushie slowly collecting dust in the corner of the room? Can you feel the fanbase already having a new favorite secret boss to play with? Can you hear the countless Jevil's tales being replaced by dealmakers and save files across the world? Can you? This is the story of Jevil, the story of a discarded once beloved toy. Like an aging child growing weary of their old teddy bear, the Spade King has discarded his once valued court jester into solitary, dark and dreadful confinement. The fantastic abilities that the teddy bear once had are still unrivaled, and so they start to seek salvation in the fact, slowly drowning in the illusion of freedom through the power of fantasy still beating weak within them. Anyone who opens the rotting cardboard box in which the teddy bear is stored away will get to hear their cute, black and perfectly round button eyes scream in agony and begging just to not be forever forgotten.
God, that was really, really depressing. It really was. I mean, granted, a lot of it is speculation. But the idea that out of everything, Jevil could symbolize being forgotten. When even now, like, with all the secret bosses we've had, honestly, he's kind of the most forgettable. He was the first. And granted, you know, still one of the better songs in the game. But he was the first. Then came Spampton with all that Spampton had to entail. Then in Chapter 3 there was the Knight, which, you know, it's kind of arguable whether you call that a secret boss or not. And in Chapter 4 we had Gerson. And, you know, I again, no idea whether this, you know, could be 100% actually considered true. But I can definitely see it. I can definitely see it. But yeah, that's definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.